A man who claimed to know nothing convinced a city he knew too much, and they killed him for it. This video is about Socrates and the art of detecting ideas that only pretend to be true, not refuting them, not debating them, detecting them before they colonize your mind. 2 questions will haunt what follows. First, how do you distinguish knowledge from the well-rehearsed performance of knowing? Second, what makes an idea dangerous? Its falseness, or your certainty about it. Athens, 399 BCE. A 70-year-old stonemason is brought before 500 jurors on charges of corrupting the youth and introducing strange gods. The real charge is harder to name. Socrates made people uncomfortable. He asked questions that stripped men of their certainties in public. He never wrote a word. Everything we know comes filtered through Plato, Xenophon, Aristophanes, men who turned him into a character. But the method survived the man, a way of thinking designed not to win arguments, but to murder false ideas at their root. Consider what he actually did. He approached men with reputations, generals, poets, politicians, and asked them to define the thing they claimed to master. What is courage? What is justice? What is piety? Simple questions, the kind a child asks. And every time, the expert would answer. And every time, Socrates would show that the answer contradicted itself or led to absurdity. This was the elenchus, the refutation, not a debate where 2 sides trade claims, but a dismantling, the careful exposure of what you never actually understood. Ask yourself, how many of your own beliefs could survive that scrutiny? How many definitions do you defend without ever having tested their foundation? The Athenians voted, what? 280 guilty, 220 innocent. Close enough that he could have fled. He chose the hemlock instead. He died because he made ignorance visible. And visibility for most people is unbearable. So what exactly was the method? How do you detect a false idea before it calcifies into conviction? Socrates called it maieudex, midwifery. He didn't implant ideas. He helped you birth the knowledge already inside you, or expose the stillborn fraud you mistook for understanding. The structure is deceptively simple. Step 1, your interlocutor makes a claim. Step 2, you ask them to define their terms. Step 3, you draw out the implications of that definition. Step 4, you show how those implications contradict the original claim, or contradict something else they believe. Step 5, aporia, the impasse, the moment when certainty collapses and the interlocutor admits, or refuses to admit, that they don't know. That refusal is critical. Socrates didn't force anyone to abandon their beliefs. He just made the cost of keeping them visible. In the Euthyphro, a priest claims to know piety. Socrates asks, is something pious because the gods love it, or do the gods love it because it is pious? If the first, piety is arbitrary, divine whim. If the second, piety exists independent of the gods, which means the gods don't define it. Either way, the priest's authority dissolves. This is not sophistry. Sophistry wins by rhetoric. Thus, the elenchus wins by waiting for you to contradict yourself. The question is, do you have the courage to turn this method on yourself? To ask what you mean when you say the words you rely on? Socrates drew a line between 2 kinds of mental content, doxa and epistemia, opinion and knowledge. Opinion is what you inherit, what feels true, what everyone around you believes. Knowledge is what survives interrogation. Most of what you carry is opinion, beliefs absorbed through repetition, through authority, through the comfort of consensus. You believe the earth orbits the sun. Do you know it? Could you prove it to someone who doubted using only what you yourself understand? Or do you believe it because someone you trust told you? and disbelieving would mark you as ignorant. The distinction matters because opinion masquerading as knowledge is where false ideas breed. And once they breed, they defend themselves. In the Meno, Socrates demonstrates that a slave boy with no formal education can derive the Pythagorean theorem through questioning alone. The point is not that the boy already knew mathematics. The point is that knowledge has structure. It coheres. Opinion does not. You can hold contradictory opinions for years without noticing. You cannot hold contradictory knowledge. The system collapses. Ask yourself, which of your beliefs exist in isolation, never tested against each other? What happens when you force them into the same room? So why do false ideas prosper? If the method is so simple, why does ignorance dressed as certainty still rule the world? Because certainty feels better than doubt. Because not knowing is a wound to the ego, and most people will believe anything to avoid that pain. Socrates said the unexamined life is not worth living. But the examination hurts. It costs you the version of yourself you've been performing. Consider how ideas spread. Not through evidence, through repetition, through the authority of the speaker, through the size of the crowd nodding along. If 1,000 people believe something, the 1,001st feels pressure to agree. Not because the belief is true, but because dissent is lonely. False ideas thrive in environments that punish questions, where asking why is seen as betrayal or arrogance or weakness. They thrive where identity is fused with belief, where abandoning an idea feels like abandoning yourself. What if you built your entire sense of worth on being the kind of person who believes X? What happens when X is exposed as fraud? You defend the idea to defend yourself, and the idea, now armored by ego, becomes invincible to reason. Socrates had no such armor. He claimed ignorance as identity. That made him free, and it made him intolerable. So how do you detect your own false ideas, the ones you carry without knowing they're there? First, notice what you're forbidden to question, the beliefs that, when challenged, provoke anger instead of curiosity. Anger is the body's defense when the mind knows it cannot justify itself. When someone questions X and you feel rage, X is worth examining. Second, ask yourself what you would lose if the belief were false. Status, belonging, the storyline that makes your life coherent. If the cost of being wrong is too high, you'll never allow yourself to discover that you are. Third, trace your belief to its origin. Did you arrive at it through reasoning, or inherit it like a family heirloom? If you cannot reconstruct the argument that convinced you, you were never convinced. You were installed. Fourth, practice the elenchus on yourself. Take your most cherished belief and argue against it as forcefully as you can. If you cannot steelman the opposition, you don't understand the issue. You've just chosen a team. Fifth, seek out aporia deliberately. Put yourself in situations where you're forced to say, I don't know, and mean it. The discomfort is the point. Growth happens in the gap between what you thought you knew and what the evidence shows. Sixth, watch for the moment when you start defending instead of investigating. When you stop asking if and start explaining why. Or that shift from inquiry to advocacy is where false ideas lock in. You've stopped being a philosopher. You've become a priest. And finally, accept that some of what you believe right now, today, is wrong. You don't know which parts yet, but they're there. Living with that uncertainty is what Socrates meant by wisdom. Not knowing more, knowing how much you don't. Two questions open this inquiry. The first, how do you distinguish knowledge from the performance of knowing? By watching what survives when you stop performing. Knowledge stands when you strip away authority, consensus, comfort, Opinion collapses the moment you question who told you it was true. The second question: what makes an idea dangerous? Its falseness, or your certainty about it? The certainty. A false idea held loosely can be corrected. A false idea fused with identity becomes immune to evidence, and the mind that holds it becomes a too. Socrates died for asking questions the city needed asked. The hemlock didn't kill the method. 2,000 years later, we still don't have a better one.